All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
And good evening, one and all, and welcome back to the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, and the X Zone is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. It's a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. The X Zone comes to you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. Eastern until midnight, right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email, the email address is really simple, X Zone Nation. Xzone at classic1220.ca. My guest this hour is Mr. Mark Carpenter, and he is joining us from Parkville, Maryland. And we're going to be talking about ancient origin. We're going to be talking about human origins, cultural anthropology, and biblical archaeology and activism. Joining me now is Mark Carpenter. And Mark, welcome to the X Zone.
Hi, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, so I'm a cultural anthropologist. I studied formally cultural anthropology, and I was really fixated initially on getting hard, concrete scientific insight into pyramids and the disappearance of the Maya. And this was back some 20-odd years ago. Studying archaeology and anthropology, University of North Carolina. That's really my background.
So, what did you discover about the Mayan pyramids? I've been down to Mexico. I think they're fantastic. In fact, my wife and I did the Mexican tours during 2011, 2001, 2010?
Sure.
When was the end of the Mayan calendar?
Well, the whole Mayan 2012 thing.
2012, there you go, yeah.
Yeah, 2012, there was allegedly a reset of the Great Baktun, was the long count Mayan calendar. That was 2012.
I went down there and I had the opportunity of speaking to the Mayan people, and I was asking them about, is this the end? And one elder said, "Do you have a fridge at home?" I said, "Yeah." "Do you have a calendar on that fridge?" And I said, "Well, as a matter of fact, we do." He said, "Now, what do you do New Year's Eve?" I said, "We celebrate New Year's Eve." He says, "Now, what do you do with that calendar the next day?" "Oh, we take it off the fridge and we put the new one up." He said, "There's the mystery about 2012.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You'd be amazed at how much insight you can get just from talking to the indigenous people, and as an anthropologist, that's precisely what I was also into. And one of the first things I found was that the Mayan didn't disappear.
Mm-hmm.
That's a misunderstanding. However, there was a culture that disappeared. And that was the culture that surrounded the pyramid construction and the worship of these deities, these dragon deities. Weren't necessarily dragon, but anthropomorphic deities, underworld mostly. And so what you will find is it was the ruling elite. It was the ruling elite that were the ones who established these cult centers and who imposed this imported tradition on the indigenous people like the Maya. And eventually, when this relationship between ruling elite and regular peasant people broke down and the peasant people revolted, then that was when the cult centers collapsed and the ruling elite moved on.
Where did they go?
So that's really the disappearance of the Maya.
Do we have any idea where did they went? And
well, sure, they dispersed. Well, a lot of these of what mainstream science regards as heydays of this cult center versus that cult center
Right.
was really a domino collapse of the ruling elite. So they would establish a cult center here, wherever, Palenque or Teotihuacan, and they would reign supreme from that cult center, and they would branch out and build other little sort of colony cult centers, and those would be managed by their offspring and whatnot, and eventually you would have this dynasty that would rule a whole land with lots of cult centers. But then a cult center would collapse, and the ruling elite would go from one to the other, and then eventually they had all collapsed. And what was the remnants of the culture moved north primarily into from Old Mexico into New Mexico, which is where you find these mysterious carry-on cultures like Chaco Canyon.
Now, there's been rumors of a Smithsonian archaeological cover-up. You claim to have definitive evidence proving that this is true. What kind of cover-up are we talking about here?
Indeed I do, and indeed there is. So you might be familiar, or some of your listeners may be familiar with countless books and websites regarding over the past century, mostly at the end of the 20th century, early 21st century, when there was a great deal of mound excavation in North America. Right, and so there are about 1,200 reports from various hamlet newspapers and whatnot, and historical society write-ups, and even actually the Bureau of Ethnology reports themselves. Bureau of Ethnology is the Smithsonian before the Smithsonian. Think of it like the OSS and the CIA.
Okay.
So these reports and from all over the country over a long period, they all record gigantic or abnormal skeletons being unearthed from these mounds and then mysteriously spirited away by the Smithsonian.
So are we talking about giants here?
We are. We are. Gigantic stature was probably the most common of these abnormal genetic traits that were described in the reports. Now those are just the surface reports, but I have uncovered some definitive evidence regarding Kennewick Man. And Kennewick Man really is the smoking gun that proves the Smithsonian is indeed orchestrating a cover-up of ancient remains.
Why would the Smithsonian be doing this? Why do we need to have a cover-up about ancient remains?
Yeah, the why is one of the hardest aspects of this. Certainly it rattled my paradigm. As I was coming up, I thought scientists were generally speaking on the same side, regardless of what they may believe. I naively thought that they were generally out there trying to get to the objective truth of things. And that's what I thought science was, but that's not what science is. Science are institutions, and these institutions were cultivated and manufactured by men, and by men who belong to secret societies. And these secret societies are bloodline, legacy, membership-only fraternal organizations. And those are really painting it much more lightly than the reality of what it is they're a cult. And we don't see it. It's behind the scenes. These people just appear like regular big shot aristocrat, bureaucrat type people. But behind the scenes, the founders of America and the founders of the Smithsonian, these are secret society people, and they take very seriously the religious beliefs and paradigms of the public who they see as their subjects.
So what do you...
That's a long answer. To boil it down a little bit better, why would they cover this up? Because it validates aspects of the Bible. And at the time, and today, they were not interested in fostering a religious nation or providing scientific validation of ancient tradition. No. They wanted the opposite. They wanted a secular nation of people who were not united by Abrahamic tradition.
So what we're talking about here is a control factor.
Exactly. A paradigmatic control factor. Exactly.
What other things do you think that the Smithsonian and the secret occults or secret societies are keeping from people like you and I?
Oh, well, we'd need another radio program, but I would say all of the deepest discoveries and understanding of science and the occult, and the occult really just means the hidden things. But we're talking about religion and witchcraft and prophecy and human origins, and they regard these things as their aristocratic privilege. So basically everything, the deepest discoveries and mysteries on the edge of discovery, that's all their private domain.
Can we overthrow these people? Can we get the secrets out into the public and let the public know what is going on and what the truth is?
Well, we can, and we can by people like myself, because the truth, it's not possible, as much as they might try, and as good as they are at distorting reality and brainwashing the public with their media and their billboards and their Super Bowls and their institutional indoctrination, all of that can't ultimately conceal the truth. There's biblical scripture about this, Mark 4:22, which relate very much to my name and my experience in life, and it essentially says that all secrets will eventually be brought into the light.
Mark,
and there is ways of cracking their code of secrecy. Absolutely.
All right, Mark, thank you very much. We'll be back on the other side of this break. And Exonation,
Okay.
My special guest is Mark Carpenter. His website is myapocalypticchronicles.com. Wow. Giants. The Mayan. Now we're talking about human origins here this hour here in the X Zone. Don't go away as we take this break. You're listening to the X Zone radio show on your classic hometown radio, Classic 1220, from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. Whatever you do, don't go away. We'll be right back.
Girl, you are to me all that a woman should be, and I dedicate my life to you always.
Welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. My guest this hour is Mark Carpenter. We're going to continue our conversation about human origins, cultural anthropology, and biblical archaeology and activism. During the break, you and I were chatting briefly, and do these people really think that they have the ability to keep these secrets so well hidden because they're a secret society and that they can get away with it?
Well, they do. I think they probably anticipate factions of people like myself, believers and people who are aware.
Mm-hmm.
However, they understand that well, they understand bread and circuses, and they understand very well how to manipulate the masses. So they're satisfied, I think, with near total domination. They would like complete, but they can successfully distort history in the minds of the public. Unfortunately.
For one thing, Mark, I'm glad you're out there. We need you out there. We need people to say, hey, what you're being told is being filtered, it's being controlled, and the truth is being suppressed. So thanks for doing what you do, Mark. But when we look
I appreciate it.
No, I'm serious, my friend. I am truly serious. One of the best examples that I have been given over the years doing this show is that, Christopher Columbus didn't discover America. And yet, every school book says he did. Why? Because academia can't go back on what they believe. And we're talking about a way of suppressing the people, fabricating the truth, so to enrich those who want the truth to be swayed their way. So do me a favor, Mark. Never stop what you're doing. You're needed.
I appreciate it. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. I couldn't stop at this point if I wanted to. Apparently, it's all I'm suited to do.
Well, listen,
but it is
that's
part of my personality. I can't stand lies or bullies, especially on this kind of level. Just to see people being confused and distorted, my people. I'm gonna stand up for the truth as I see it always.
Mark, in your opinion, what would happen if the truth really came out? How would the truth affect society?
Well, if the truth just came out now, that's a good. Well, in a way, I think it is coming out, just in terms of we're starting to see these people and their secret societies. They're coming out. They're going public.
Mm-hmm.
We've reached a point now where they have such a digital stranglehold on the hive mind psyche that they are now distorting morality. They've already done a good job of distorting reality, and now they're distorting morality. And so we are starting to see who they really are, but the public can't put it into the context. The public can't put it in the context of, millennia of witchcraft and tyranny and satanic worship and just all these demonic crimes and ritual sacrifice and ceremonial cannibalism and all of it. We're going to see the reality of these things, but people just might be too far gone in their cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is very powerful, and so people can sort of maladjust to their reality because facing it is more difficult. But to answer your question, I think people would have a religious sort of confrontation.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to really decide, I think, which side you're on eventually.
Well, isn't that what the Bible is all about? Good versus evil, and it's so prevalent because I believe we live in a world of zeros and one, up, down, in, out, right, left, good, evil. So taking everything into consideration and looking at the secrecy that the secret societies believe they have and how they can manipulate the rest of the world, hasn't the time come where they can't hide these secrets anymore? That thanks to the internet, thanks to people like you who are bringing everything to light, secret societies aren't going to be secret anymore.
Well, we are. They have. If you begin to understand how their predictive programming works, And if you apply this lens to their propaganda and their symbolism, you'll see that an unveiling is absolutely part of their plan. It's kind of like if you watch fictional series, you'll notice how when you get to the sixth season, all of the plot twists are already used up.
Right.
You know, you've already had this crisis and that crisis. So when you get to plot 6, what you get is a big climactic battle and a big bloodbath, and then a big reveal. And I think that is where we're heading now. They're tired of hiding in the shadows. They're tired of this Abrahamic code of morality that they, from their perspective, have been saddled with. These people are totally unhinged, and they worship Satan, and they don't care. They don't care. They don't care how unhinged or immoral they may be. That's their thing, and I understand it's a big jump for most people to understand this, but I have plenty to substantiate. If you look at, for example, Bohemian Grove, so these military-industrial media and finance elites, they gather in the woods, Northern California, and they do a ritual to an idol of Moloch. And that's not my opinion or interpretation. There's an idol there, and that's what they gather, and that's what they do. And so, yeah, we are going to witness, I think, a separating of the goats from the sheep, so to speak.
So do they actually partake in these demonic rituals?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Just a piece that connects back to my experience, there was a rededication of a Mayan pyramid at Uxmal in Mexico. And this is a very interesting pyramid. This pyramid has very steep angles. It's unique even among Mayan pyramids, and it's one of the oldest Mayan pyramids. And it was said to have been built by a dwarf in a single night. A dwarf who was born of a witch, presumably through a witchcraft ritual. She conceived this dwarf, who then approached the king, and the king challenged him. And in the span of one night, he built this pyramid, and it's known as the Pyramid of the Sorcerer, Pyramid of the Dwarf. And human sacrifices were performed at this pyramid for centuries before there was, as I discussed before, a common revolt, which then drove the cult leaders away. But interesting about this pyramid, when it was excavated and rededicated in the 70s, Queen Elizabeth flew from the United Kingdom to Mexico to be present for the rededication of this pyramid. Now, a rededication of a pyramid would be one of the most bloody and gruesome spectacles that you could probably not even imagine. Assembly lines of sacrificial victims would be lined up, and for days and nights, consecutive days and nights, an assembly line of sacrificial victims would be just repeatedly slaughtered, and I won't even go into the details. But the fact is that Queen Elizabeth, we have to understand that a British monarch, they have especially Queen Elizabeth, had very, very tight schedules and agendas and meeting with this, So for her to appear personally at a Mayan, and there was a light show, and it was all very contrived, and for her to show up there, and she was also guided by a Mayan tradition keeper, which really means an expert in Mayan witchcraft and rituals. So that's just an example. These people do indeed perpetuate the culture, the demonic culture to which we are referring.
I can't understand why Queen Elizabeth would be going to a ceremony in Mexico. Mexico is not part of the British Empire. It never has been.
Right.
So there are those who believe that the monarch, the House of Windsor, Her Majesty before she passed away, and now King Charles, they were part of this reptilian group. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know,
Yeah.
and
Well, it's all related.
you have to sit and wonder, how in the heck does this all fit into today's society?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and if it's true, and I'm not saying it's not, please believe me, what significance does it have? What is it going to affect on society? And what's next? What are we going to learn next?
Well, I'm glad you brought up the reptilian thing, because some of these things are very dark and they are very complicated, and they challenge what we're taught to believe, but we've already learned that that's compromised.
Yeah.
So it leaves you in this paradigmatic tailspin as to what is real and what is not, and you're getting, tumbling around like you're in a washing machine.
Exactly.
Well, so these people aren't actually reptilians. It's not like it's not like the science fiction films. However, when you understand the ancient prehistoric religion and the traditions and how they're practiced, they would do what we would consider in modern terms demonic possession. They would invite it.
Mark,
So
stand
they
by.
would do a ritual. Yeah.
Mark, I hate to do this. I've got to take a break. Exxon Nation. Mark
No
Carpenter is
worries.
our special guest. What a great hour this is. Thank you, Mark, for joining us.
Sure.
And if
Sure.
you'd like to find out more about Mark, visit his website, myapocalypticchronicles.com. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the Exxon, and you're listening to us right here on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and around the world on classic1220.ca.
And we both know. Cherish is a word I use to describe all the feeling that I have hiding here for you inside. You don't know how many times I've wished that I had.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the Exxon. I'm Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on your hometown radio, Classic 1220, and streamed around the world on classic1220.ca. Mark Carpenter is our special guest. His website is myapocalypticchronicles.com. So we were talking about the reptilians. The word reptilian, is this just a metaphor for something, or are we talking about the real kind of people who turn into lizards?
Well, there is a literal aspect to it. And I know this because we've got mirroring traditions from ancient India to the modern day southwestern United States.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just traditions and iconography. We have those, and when I say traditions and iconography, I mean of anthropomorphic, hybridized, reptilian, quasi-divine underworld beings. So that's definitely it's universal, really, to these ancient traditions that these hybridized. But I think we want to look at it much more scientifically, and when we start to realize that these ancient traditions of cannibalistic hominids, so a hominid is just a fancy scientific word for meaning a different species, an antediluvian, an early species of human, not Homo sapien. So in the scientific world, we think of like Homo Neanderthal, we think of Homo heidelbergensis, we think of the Denisovans. So when we start to realize that these remains and these early hominid humans link to the ancient traditions of cannibalistic giants and whatnot, and diminutive people and so forth, then we start to understand that this ancient hybridization between non-human and human really did occur. And it really did occur, and it really did spawn invasive hybrid species. And so there is actually a literal reality to anthropomorphic hybridized reptilian people, but these are not our leaders of secret cults.
You know, when we talk about giants, are these the Nephilim that the Bible talks about?
Exactly. That's exactly what the controversial nature of what my discovery and dissertation was that there is hard scientific evidence in the archaeological and fossil records that validate, to some extent, the existence of the biblical Nephilim.
All right, now this is confusing to me, because if there are those people out there who want to prove that the Bible is real and that there's more to the Bible than we understand, here we have proof, archaeological proof, that these giants are in fact the Nephilim that are talked about in the Bible. And if the Nephilim are real, then other aspects of the Bible have to be real.
Exactly.
So what are we afraid of, Mark? What is society afraid of?
Well, I don't think it's society per se. I think society are sheep, and they are guided by their shepherds. You know, there's scientific data to indicate that something like 80% of all people lack the cognitive strength to defy their authorities, basically, and what they think and what they do. You know, so, the percentage of people, that's just they would just prefer to go with the flow of society, you know, herd mentality and Edward Bernays and all that, the bewildered herd. So it is unfortunate that their lightning rod, you know, and their shepherding will always be superior in some mass production way. So it's really just a case of them leading everybody astray.
So here's the Kool-Aid, drink it.
Yeah, exactly. And most people, even though they know it's bad, they just prefer, you know, the path of least resistance.
So as a researcher, as an author, and somebody who gives a damn about society, what is it that frustrates you the most?
What frustrates me the most is people who are really adamant, and unfortunately this is most people. They're really adamant that they have a good grip on things when they haven't really studied them. And so I'm afraid we have a lot. It's ironic that we're in this time when everybody walks around with a supercomputer in their pocket, and yet people read and research less than ever. Isn't that ironic? Because they have information intravenously injected into their mind. So there's really not. So despite the fact that information flows further than ever, people's critical thinking is weaker than ever. So that's what frustrates me. Is even now today with information at their fingertips, they can't be bothered to read.
So the mark of the beast is not 666. The mark of the beast is WWW.
Well, we could discuss the mark of the beast, actually, if you like. I think I have some insight into that.
I'd love to.
I think it relates directly to the Nephilim.
Let's do that, my friend. So how does the mark of the beast, reflect or work with the Nephilim?
So Revelation 13:18 says, "Let he with insight decipher this," and it says the beast has a number. There's a number that corresponds to the name of the beast. Actually, so what it says is the beast has a name, and that name corresponds to a number, and that number is 666. Let he with wisdom decipher this. in ancient times, Nephilim were kings that fit the Antichrist mold. And there's actually in the prophecy a description of a series of Antichrist kings throughout the course of history. Call this the mystery kings. Now it makes reference to multiple beasts in the future end time prophecy, and the one in which we're talking here is the false prophet, and it says that the false prophet. Well, it makes reference to him as an ancient king. And Revelation 13:18 says 666. Well, the ancient figure Gilgamesh. So the discernment they are giving, the authors of Revelation are giving us a clue, and they're saying that somebody with wisdom should understand this. And the reason that he put that clue there is because he understands that somebody with wisdom will understand who Gilgamesh was, because Gilgamesh was a Nephilim king, and he wasn't just a Nephilim, he was more like the Nephilim. And he was more like the Nephilim because he was 2/3 non-human rather than just 50% non-human.
When we look into Greek mythology about the centaurs, half human, half horse, and other examples of animal and human combining, are we talking about Nephilim here, or are we talking about DNA experimentation that people just really don't want to talk about?
Well, I would be careful with that.
Okay.
Genetic manipulation, yes. However, it's my position that the entire alien aspect of it is actually part of this cult psychological grooming. They want to whitewash or launder, if you will. They want to launder the reputation, the demonic reputation of Nephilim by misconstruing them as extraterrestrial. So they're not demonic. They're visitors from another world who are misunderstood as gods or demons or whatnot. And so by making them from another planet rather than the underworld, they have laundered their demonic reputation. Because if everybody understood who they were, everyone would just uniformly try to eradicate them. If they understood how dangerous they were and that their only mission in their existence is to re-enslave our entire species.
Okay, so if these ETs that are visiting us now are the Nephilim and they want to enslave us now, why are we putting up with it? Why don't we put up our defenses and say, hey, we're not going to let you do that? No way.
Well, because remember, the rulers of society are a satanic cult.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And so they are in league with them to some extent. I'm not saying that there's like a quid pro quo type relationship,
right.
But ultimately they understand, they meaning the cult of the authorities and their secret societies, their cabal, they understand that a Nephilim resurgence is imminent, and they are grooming and prepping us for this event. Well, and not only that, I think they're facilitating it to some extent. And that's really where that's a good segue, because that brings us back to Gilgamesh.
So do you think that the UFO connection, the sighting of UFOs, the alleged interaction of ETs with humans, the alleged removal of fetuses from pregnant women is real?
I think a great deal of it is real. And it's just being misconstrued as something extraterrestrial rather than Nephilim invasive hominid hybrid. And like I said, they push the extraterrestrial aspect rather than the subterranean netherworld aspect.
Stand by, Mark. We've got to take our final break for this hour. Fascinating conversation, fascinating guest. Mark Carpenter is his name. Visit myapocalypticchronicles.com. Wow. Exonation, send me your comments. exxon@classic1220.ca. Mark and I return on the other side of this short break. Don't go away.
Cherish me as much as I cherish you. Perish is the word.
Love soft as an easy chair. Love fresh as the morning air.
Welcome back, everyone. During this last break, I was watching our news feed, and the concerns are that, Putin may launch a nuclear attack. And then the next story that is on the news feed is that the Americans have used cyber technology against the Iranians. Like, what in the name of God is happening to this wonderful planet that we're in? Do we really need to annihilate each other? I don't understand why we just can't get along. My idea is that if there's a problem, let's say in Iran or any other country where civil unrest happens and you've got all these people who want to leave that country instead of stay there, send in the United Nations. Isn't that what they're there for? Let them solve the problem. We all really don't need to get involved, do we? Oh, that's just my way of looking at things. Mark Carpenter is our special guest. His website is myapocalypticchronicles.com. First of all, Mark, thanks very much for joining us. I really appreciate what you do. And somebody's got to ring the bell and say, hey, you bunch of bozos out there, you've swallowed the good old glass of Kool-Aid. Jim Jones is to the north, but reality is to the south. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Without platforms like this, I don't have a voice, so I appreciate you too.
You've got a voice, my friend. Let's talk about Gilgamesh.
Sure, yes, good. Gilgamesh, as I was saying before, he's not just a Nephilim, he's more like the Nephilim. And the reason is because when this hybridization would occur between non-human and human, it's the exotic non-human aspect of their DNA, of the biblical watcher or the Arabic jinn. When they would interbreed, their exotic 50% of non-human DNA was what made the Nephilim so gigantic and powerful and what we would consider supernatural abilities. Well, sometimes there would be a Nephilim who was already hybridized that would then mate with a non-human. So the percentage of exotic genetic influence would go up tremendously. Mm-hmm. And in Gilgamesh's case, the the Epic of Gilgamesh and the Sumerian Kings list indicate that he was 2/3 non-human and 1/3 human. And when 2/3, and this is his defining attribute, we have to understand that a 50% human and 50% watcher is a really powerful, monstrous hybrid. That's why these Nephilim were called the heroes of old, the warriors of renown, and why we have this kaleidoscope of culture heroes slaying monsters and building these epic things and doing all these things. Well, Gilgamesh at 2/3 non-human makes him an incredibly dark and dangerous and powerful hybrid. And that 2/3 genetics is his defining attribute, and that is the clue that the biblical author is prompting us to. That is the wisdom that he is banking on, that you will understand Gilgamesh was a Babylonian king and an antichrist figure. and that he was 2/3 non-human. That is the number of his name, 2/3 converted, 66.6.
Are we in the end times as talked about in the Bible?
I believe we are. And, I've grappled with that a lot and thought to myself, well, what if it's 1 century after we die? Or it really doesn't matter. It matters, but from the believer's perspective, if you put faith into the narratives, then they would tell you need to remain vigilant regardless. So you should be on a similar trajectory regardless. However, to not to dance around your question, there is objective evidence. For example, Revelation prophecy describes an army of 200 million men camped on the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and they're marching west towards Jerusalem. Well, with the alignment of BRICS and the current international conflict narrative spectacle that's being orchestrated, you could very much see how. It would almost be exactly that. If China and Russia built themselves an army, and that's exactly where they would head. They would exactly head to the western boundary of their territory, which would be at the banks of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, which is where the Western world would meet them. So there is objective evidence that. There's more. There's more. The return of the Jews to Israel. It's part of the prophecy, and it's also very confusing, and might as well take a second to clear that up. A lot of people are confused, thinking that this is ancient Israel from ancient times, but in fact it's not. The star on the flag is not the Star of David. There is no Star of David in Scripture, although that star can be found in Scripture in Amos 5:26 and Acts 7:43 as the Star of Remphan and the Tabernacle of Moloch. So it's forbidden. It's a satanic symbol. And so getting down to it, there is objective evidence, because when the Jews returned to Israel in 1948, there were rabbis who stood up and said, but, it's forbidden for us to return because we were exiled for practicing demonic worship and witchcraft in ancient times. And there was a prophecy down that if they returned prematurely, that one generation would not see, they would not see the end of one generation. And so one generation is 100 years, and that was 1948. So that would lead us to 2048. The prophecy would seem to indicate that can't happen, that they can't reach one full generation of an unlawful return to the Holy Land.
So when we're talking about these Nephilim, are we talking about fallen angels, or are we talking about extraterrestrials?
Well, see, I think they have done a very good job of intermingling that concept. The biblical watcher does not really correlate to this, this idea of a similar carbon-based life form from another planet. No, the narratives, and it's not just the biblical narrative, by the way. The ancient Greek narrative and the Arabic narratives, and really all around the world, are actually quite uniform on the nature of these beings. And they describe them as solar, winged, dragon, fiery beings that are intimately related to stars. Not in a metaphorical or metaphorical way that they are from another star system. No, that they actually dwell within stars, and they are not carbon-based life forms as we are, but rather, and this is my speculation, that they are some sort of plasma-based life form. Now, are they interstellar and extraterrestrial? Well, yes. But those are just words. Those are just words that are attached to concepts that are, in fact, malignant propaganda. So I would say they are, while they are technically interstellar and extraterrestrial, those carry misleading connotations with them that I would implore you to avoid. They are non-human elder plasma-based life forms.
In your opinion, are they on this planet right now?
Yes, they've been here from the dawn, and they will be here throughout. They are called watchers in the biblical text because they are ever present. They watch us, and they maintain the mechanisms of the natural world, and they observe us, and that's what they do. And yes, they've been here the whole time.
It's rather ironic to hear that, because looking at everything we are going through today in society with the, just a couple of months ago, you had the congressional hearings on UFOs, UAPs, and there seems to be so much deceit, so much information that is or they're trying to erase it from history, that what is a young person coming into this world supposed to think?
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think that's exactly the point. A lot of what they have engineered is specifically designed to divide parent and child, and to get their influence again intravenously wedged into the mind of the child. And so now, you've got children with iPhones and internet goggles from the time that they're, conscious. And that's not good. And people don't see the harm in it, but that's because they're not thinking critical, like we talked about. There's always going to be someone who wants to influence you or wants to influence your child. And yes, they don't know what to believe, and they ultimately get a convoluted message, a convoluted paradigm delivered to them by this cult.
Mark, the time has come when you and I must say so long for tonight, but I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing, and we will have you back on, because there's still so much to talk about. Let our listeners know how they can find out about you and your websites.
Sure, we have an Instagram account, My Apocalyptic Chronicles, on Instagram. You can check us out there. There's a lot going on that account. And then, of course, the My Apocalyptic Chronicles is the blog, and then there's also an accompanying Patreon. It's just Mark Carpenter at Patreon. And please do support me and my colleagues. We're trying to bring people bigger and better videos. We create this all the time, and really that's just a mechanism so that we can furnish people with the truth. So
all right, Mark.
The people doing research for the people.
All right, I want to thank you so much. And X-Zone Nation, on the other side of this break, more from the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada. I'm Rob McConnell. Don't go away.
Turn all of the lights on over